All right, everyone, let's get the meeting going. Good morning, or in some case, good afternoon, and so forth, different time zones. My name is Siim. As hopefully many of you know, I'm the government CIO for Estonia, as well as the chair for our E-Leaders, or as it is affectionately called, or the working party, always the working party of senior digital government officials. Glad to greet you, everyone. Glad that you could join us. We have two quite packed days ahead of us, or half days ahead of us, and it's been a year since we last met in Brussels, and what a year it has been, of course. We have quite a few important topics ahead of us in these 2.5 days. We will go through that a bit later, but I hope that these 2.5 days will be actually quite fruitful for all of you, because the Secretariat has worked a lot hard to make the long distance meeting and remote meeting as interactive and engaging as it would be in a physical space. So I hope you are all actively involved and engaged in discussions and sessions and so on. There will be quite a lot of fireworks happening between Zoom, Teams, so on. So stay on board, and the Secretariat is surely on top of the game to help us through all of that. A few technical things just to start off with. On Microsoft Teams, that's just basically like a collaboration space we use in parallel. So all the video sessions and meeting in that sense will happen in Zoom here, but keep Teams open as well. And during the meeting and also afterwards, you can post, comment, do all kinds of stuff there, message each other. If you haven't still seen the meeting guide, check out the meeting guide. It just might be helpful to just go over a few points, and you know what happens when and where. But we will surely, myself as a chair as well as the Secretariat, help to always announce what happens next. So don't worry about that too much. And if you have any problem at all, exactly just in Teams or otherwise, let the Secretariat know, and they'll run to help, not physically, but from a distance. But that's all for just the opening, and I would actually like to give the floor, so to speak, or the video channel at least, to Deputy Secretary General of the OECD, Mr. Jeffrey Schlagenhoff, to officially kick us on the road and kick the meeting open. So Jeffrey, are you with us? How is it looking from the Secretariat side?
Yeah, I think that Deputy Secretary General, we cannot hear you.
Meaning any of us?
No. Now it should be okay.
Okay. So Jeffrey, can you hear us now? In the meanwhile, I can fill all the space you need.
Can you hear me now?
Very well. Glad to have you, Deputy Secretary General. The channel is yours.
Pardon-moi. Mesdames et messieurs, leaders, délégués, bienvenue à la réunion 2020 du groupe de travail de l'OCDE, des autres fonctionnaires du gouvernement numérique. Mes félicitations à vous tous pour cette réunion virtuelle et un ordre du jour rempli de sujets intéressants et de formats de sessions innovants. Je vais continuer en anglais. Whether we like it or not, we are moving from going digital to being digital. And you are leading the way in making the most of opportunities that digital tools can offer to maintain a personable and engaging spirit in our exchanges. The unprecedented events of 2020 have put the critical role of public governance in the spotlight. Governments need to prove themselves capable of being resilient, agile, responsive, and innovative, leveraging digital tools and data as vital enablers to support a sustainable recovery. The COVID-19 pandemic has also revealed the acuteness and severity of global challenges if countries do not cooperate and coordinate internationally. This is particularly relevant for digital technologies and data, as their cross-border nature warrants international cooperation on ethical standards to ensure that the internet provides a safe and trustworthy environment for people to access economic and social opportunities globally. Over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, the reliance on digital technologies and data have been stimulated at a breakneck speed. We know of many exemplary cases of collaboration and coordination from countries to deliver critical services. For instance, Canada ensured strong coordination within and across levels of government to launch a voluntary COVID-19 school screening tool based on an open code to assist the safe reopening of schools. Portugal initiated an Office for Digital Response to COVID-19 to assess and coordinate the implementation of digital measures across the public, private sectors, and civil society on infrastructure, communication packages, software licenses, and solutions. Brazil saw a collaborative effort of over 40 volunteers study official health reports obtained from city and municipality level official data on the COVID-19 pandemic and share on a daily basis this information on an open platform in machine readable and reusable formats. There is no denying that digital technologies and data have played a key role in mitigating the economic slowdown, sustaining well-being, and speeding up recovery at the national level. Yet, we need to see more concrete examples of international digital cooperation and solidarity to use technologies for tackling the economic, social, and environmental challenges and crises we face. I call upon the E-Leaders to rise to the occasion of strengthening digital global governance. The root causes of these global challenges are not technical in nature, but rather an issue of governance. How well we govern digital technologies and data determines how well we can mitigate the risks and prevent the darker side of technology being increasingly politicized. These troubling signs can be countered by setting strong ethical standards, establishing cooperative mechanisms, recognizing digital enablers and data as a core and critical infrastructure, investing, managing, and leveraging the use of digital tools and data as strategic assets to deliver economic and social outcomes that matter for people in the short, the medium, and the long term. The OECD plays a strategic role in supporting international cooperation on these issues in ways that respond to the needs expressed by governments. Today, we celebrate 4 momentous achievements. Number 1, the launch of the OECD Digital Government Index 1.0. 2, the second version of the E-Leaders Handbook on Governance. 3, the development of the Financial Management Framework. And 4, the Global E-Leaders Initiatives. These 4 tools are designed to support the E-Leaders in 3 ways. At a political level, to steer high-level political commitment. At a strategic level, to support coherent decision-making across levels of government. And at an operational level, to make tangible choices on digital government effectively. The OECD is committed to working with the E-Leaders in the global community to secure that government's use of digital tools and data is well governed towards a sustainable recovery. I look forward to supporting the E-Leaders on this critical agenda and tackling these global challenges collectively. With that, I now welcome the Chair of E-Leaders, Mr. Siem Sakut, to take the floor. I wish you all a very productive and fruitful meeting, and thank you for the opportunity to join you today.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And you have very rightly said it. It's exactly quite useful, if not critical, for governments to make the most of digital technologies and data towards a sustainable recovery. So otherwise, it surely will be a missed opportunity at the very least. And thanks also for the rallying call for us e-leaders to actually be sort of wider leaders in that vein. E-leaders can be mighty instruments in the hands of governments if governments and politicians and policymakers use this know-how, for the best of their ability. Look, but perhaps a few opening words from myself as well to continue. I think there's many words being done about COVID-19 as sort of the defining topic in all circles, all meetings, all things happening this year, and it seems that in many ways, what is one of the outcomes of COVID-19 is to show that the role of the state and the role of government in that sense is quite essential in many ways. Whether to make sure that the public sectors keep functioning even at the worst of times, whether it's to make sure that essential public services are still being delivered, or any also crisis and health response is effective in itself, and of course at the same time keeping trust and keeping connection to the people we serve, that the sort of communities and countries stay together. I think that's why, before even COVID started, e-leaders, remember we are working party colleagues, so our mandate was refreshed, and in this COVID time, I think our mandate and several parts of it are sort of crucial as ever. For example, we have been tasked as a working party to make sure that digital government is very strongly integrated into like a wider public sector modernization agenda. Making sure that there are good, strong, sound governance frameworks to ensure that government much more widely is operational, delivering, and so on. Or another part of our mandate, which has been to make sure that we make and governments make use, and with the support of OECD and our working party, the best use of digital technologies to promote openness and transparency and engagement with the public sector. Again, keeping the connection and the trust with the people. So these are some of the themes we will be focusing on in these next 2 days and 2 half days at least. We have, with the help of Secretariat, we've chosen them because, well, first of all, OECD itself in the background is undergoing some changes, and that us as e-leaders can benefit from and support from. For example, now the open and innovative government and digital government streams have been brought together, then how to align these things and to ensure openness and engagement and so on. But at the same time, again, as been already many times said, that digitalization is at the very minds and hearts of government leaders around the world. And in terms of restarting the economy and making sure that the transitions are happening, and not just because of COVID, but of course, with the green growth in mind and otherwise. So for this to happen and for this momentum to last, I think a lot of our focus has to go to making sure how do we give this contribution, how do we make this digital government contributions last, and that's why sort of the governance, just like Jeffrey pointed out, of digital government is such a strong issue as well, and the OECD indeed has many outputs in this from this last year that we will discuss. So the underlying or the umbrella theme we have chosen this time for this meeting is digital government maturity. We sort of feel that this is sort of what captures in a nutshell, or like I said, as an umbrella, what we should be talking about. Basically making sure that our governments, that us also in our teams, because we are here, leaders of teams from each government, that we have the right capabilities, the right sort of mechanisms to make the most and leverage digital technologies and data. And of course, not just within our borders, but across them. So obviously in OECD, we are in a sort of cross-border and multilateral dimension here. And, we have always been collaborating to help each other out. So in that sense, what's great is that we have a very wide participation this time again, perhaps even wider than we physically otherwise would have had. So we have, I think, 33 countries, member countries of OECD represented, also 15 or more colleagues joining from other countries, sort of, as sort of participants in discussion and so on. Obviously, European Union on this, others, international organizations, civil society organizations chipping in as well. So there's a lot of basically community here, even in these 2 days, to tap into, to share with, to exchange with. And E-Leaders, I mean, it has always been about sharing. I think that's why we always come together into this working party and spreading experience, spreading ideas, taking up each other's ideas and experience as well to use at home. So that's why the agenda, besides the topics, has been designed in formats to basically experiment with how to make this sharing and engagement and interaction work also in digital space. We are all used to having these meetings, or different meetings happen digitally now, but it's still, I think, an art. We are all learning how to make the most of it as we would do in a physical space. So, and the Secretariat has exactly worked hard to offer a few experiments for us to keep this interaction going. You know, usually some of the best sharing in all the meetings, including E-Leaders, happens over coffee, food, or wine. So there will be some spaces even for this sort of sharing in these 2 days. And perhaps a last point in terms of my introduction. So we have a topic of things at hand. The work we do is more pressing, as well as more sort of, I guess, on the front line as ever. On that note, even if we have designed an agenda with the Secretariat, there's still a space for you to chip into what is the final agenda of the event. And that's especially because tomorrow we will have an unconference session. An unconference means that anyone can post topics, and the ones that are most popular of meetings, sort of, the ones that us as a sort of meeting participants here want to talk about the most will get taken up. So you also, if there are things burning on your plate, things that keep you up at night, things that you're thinking into the future about, bring them up on Teams community space. You will see at the very sort of up tab a place to get to the Padlet site, the board where you can submit your ideas. I'm sure Ben or Joao can sort of give us a brief glimpse afterwards how to get there and suggest topics. So basically, even if most of the agenda is set and defined, feel free to chip in what you want to talk about in addition. And if you convince others, there will be a discussion happening tomorrow. But look, the sharing dimension brings us to the very first topic for the first session today and for the opening plenary. So besides the importance of state and besides the importance of digital, I do believe that the pandemic has shown the need for international cooperation and keeping the lines and collaborations going and open. E-Leaders, we can be a big part of it to ensure that borders don't reappear, that collaboration doesn't break down, and that the multilateral efforts especially are kept alive and going into the future. And that's why we thought about sort of having a few speakers share a few perspectives in this regard, and basically making sure that we keep collaboration going. And with that, I hope that Chris Ferguson is with us from UK. So perhaps Chris, you want to take up the channel and say a few words from your side.
Hi there, Sim. I'm here. I hope you're hearing me okay.
Very well.
Super. So the internet still works in the UK. That's great. So it's a great pleasure to be here. It's hard to believe it's been a year. In some ways, it feels like a few months, and in other ways, it feels like 10 years since we last gathered in Brussels. I'm sure many of you know the intention was to host you all in London this year and to focus on design, but we hope that next year will be the time when we can all do that and gather together, hopefully in person again. But thanks very much to OECD and on all the hard work by Sim, our chair, to still bring us together even during these challenging times. It's much appreciated. A little perspective, I mean, digital maturity and collaboration, as Sim was just talking about. As many of you know, the UK spent the last 10 years since the creation of the Government Digital Service investing in digital government. And, we have in many ways reaped the benefits of this investment over the COVID-19 response period. We've been required to act very quickly and innovatively, and our digital resilience has come through in many ways in the face of the global pandemic. We've also learned many hard lessons. We have been shown what parts of government and the way our government operates are frankly not very digitally mature. And it has been something that we are in the process now of taking some time to look back on over this year and say, okay, what do we need to focus investment on? What areas do we have great expertise and knowledge in, but we haven't done a good job of helping that to scale across. One of the challenges in the UK, before I talk about international collaboration, is of course we have 4 different governments in the UK. We have the government of Scotland, of Northern Ireland, the Welsh Assembly, and then the UK government. And I know that's similar with many of us have got states or provinces or other assemblies within our own sovereign, sort of national sovereign jurisdiction. And so COVID provoked a level of cooperation between those different administrations and different levels of government, and probably unlike anything we've seen for many, many decades. And it compelled us to collaborate in a closer way and at a much higher tempo, which if nothing else, we have always had good relations, but that doesn't necessarily translate in times of emergency into active participation collaboration. So as well as the technology and the practices and the business models and the delivery, we had to change the way we worked and the way we communicated. And I think WhatsApp has become a kind of a semi-formal government channel at this point, given the amount of traffic that now happens over WhatsApp rather than through emails or any other forum. Yeah, we've never worked alone throughout the pandemic. Digital cooperation and solidarity is more critical now than it has ever been. And there's so much we can do to help each other. I know I've been reading throughout the pandemic blog posts and articles that have been published about what governments are doing all over the world. And certainly this group, we've had working groups and we've had kind of events that have allowed the E-Leaders group to talk to each other and to maintain our connections and ask each other questions. Sharing the lessons we've learned, making the tools and products we've developed open and available has also helped all across the world. So it's time to reach out beyond just the OECD country community and to make sure we're supporting other countries that may not be as digitally mature as the people within the OECD cohort. We've talked about E-Leaders Without Borders, and I know that the UK and I know many of our peers on the call work widely around the world and give a lot of their time to help countries with specific problems. And that is always and has always been, in my experience, a two-way learning process. So this E-Leaders meeting comes at a moment in time when, quite unusually, we were all facing the same challenge. We've always said from the UK, both myself and Liam Maxwell before me, that the nice thing about being a government is that we don't compete with each other. We are all our own monopolies. We're all the monopoly providers of public services in our countries. So I'm not trying to collect tax in Germany. Estonia isn't trying to issue driver's licenses in the UK. And that means that we can talk to each other about why it's difficult, why it's hard. And this pandemic is, maybe for the first time that we all have an incredibly clear and common challenge to face, and that it impacts all of our services and everything we're doing. And so we'll probably be talking about for many years, from dealing with the emergency to working on the recovery. And we can all learn from each other's talents, from each other's mistakes, and from the things that work can accelerate us back to where we had hoped to be in the first place over the years to come. So I really welcome this digital maturity conversation, because, as I said, COVID has exposed gaps. I think it's really important to talk about them, articulate why even after 10 years of investment, those gaps still exist. And then also to learn from everybody else and potentially to find help from each other that lets us move forward more quickly than we could if we were trying to do this by ourselves. But thanks very much, Sim, and I really appreciate what the OECD's done and you as chair to bring us together.
Thank you, Chris. And I'm sure, in a way, if we all grab a pint of English beer or something, we can still feel like in London, right? Or we'll see about that.
Or even better, a Scottish whiskey. There you go.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Chris. But let's move on. Mr. Sung Jo Sun, are you with us as well? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sam. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I would like to congratulate the UK government and the OECD Secretariat for organizing the first ever truly digital E-Leaders meeting. and I'm happy to be part of this important discussion on the international digital cooperation and solidarity. We are living through one of the most difficult times in the history. Oh, are you guys hearing me okay? Or am I too small? Oh, okay, thank you. We're living through one of the most difficult times in the recent history, and we are put to a test not only as an individual, but as an international community as well. In some way, the COVID-19 pandemic brought opportunities for us to accelerate the transformation that has been talked about for years. However, it also exposed a number of challenges that requires our immediate attention. For example, privacy and digital divide. Many of such complex challenges we face today and will face in the future are cross-border issues that we have to tackle them as a whole of an international community rather than individually. In addition, a resilient and responsive government that we all envision would be sustainable only when all nations around the world work together. The Republic of Korea experienced the effect of international cooperation firsthand. It enabled Korea recover from the war and develop. In today's hyper-connected digital world, international partnerships are even more important than ever. Since the beginning of the 2000s, the Korean government has been working with countries around the world, building partnerships in the field of digital government, including the one with the OECD Secretariat. As this year marks 20 years of the digital partnership, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety wanted to strengthen its cooperation with the OECD Secretariat and with the E-Leaders through signing a cooperation memorandum of understanding. It will ensure Korea's commitment towards building digitally sustainable and people-centric world through international cooperation and solidarity. I believe that synergizing Korea's international cooperation efforts with the work from the OECD Secretariat and E-Leaders would create more opportunities and enable highly effective collaboration. I hope this year's E-Leaders would further strengthen partnerships among the members in this critical time, and I look forward to our discussion over the next 2 days. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sung-Jun. Frank Lehman from Belgium. Your government and you yourself have been a great contributor internationally as well. So perhaps you want to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Sim. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see all familiar faces that were there last year in Brussels and now online. Historically, Belgium being a little small country in the middle of Europe, we've had from the start the habit of working and cooperating with non-Belgians, either forced because we were invaded by, I think, almost everybody, or voluntary on a commercial side. That's just a joke apart. But our situation today is that we have a lot of international headquarters in Brussels. We are a crossroads country where foreign colleagues pass through. We have about, I think, 1 out of 10 inhabitants is foreign. And just to give you an idea, in Brussels alone, we have 166 different nationalities living. So de facto, we have to cooperate and work together. So it's a bit, I would say, in our genes. And this cooperation, we've seen that lately with the Corona problems, the cooperation is actually starting within the country. We are also a federated state. And Chris, we beat the UK. We have 7 governments to deal with. So the cooperation, I mean, is part of our daily job. As an organization, we are taking care of digital transformation, and also there are. I think we don't think about it anymore, but we have the cross-border interoperability, for instance, is de facto in everything that we build. The multilingualism is de facto in everything that we build. Open standards is de facto. These are all things that by definition, force you to cooperate with stakeholders, with other countries, with other communities. Of course, we collaborate a lot with the European Commission, but also with organizations like OECD, World Bank, and let's say private councils like ICA, for instance. We are very, very active. And as a small country, we have to collaborate, because alone we cannot do what we can realize together. Talking about the cross-border, well, being in the center of Europe, my #1 ecosystem is, of course, the European Commission. And there, as you know, we are creating the European single market. I've been working in this job for 15 years, and for 15 years, I've been busy with discussions on cross-border interoperability, about agreeing on certain standards, making sure that we can interact with each other. Now we have this single digital gateway regulation, which invites every European country to, well, basically set up 21 services cross-border while using the once only principle. Also, that is one big piece of cross-border interoperability. We have projects like Digital Europe for All. I'm not going to go into detail there, but these are 3-year projects that are only focused on how to work together, how to collaborate together to make life easier for our citizens and our industry. Coming back to the Corona, I think we have a very nice example of this proximity tracing tool at European level. That was called PEP-PT before, but that now has been enhanced. This is a really very nice example where we managed in a short term to have a proximity tool that works cross-border. That is EU-based. Non-EU based, there, as I said, we have the ICA, we have OECD and the World Bank, where we typically, this is my playground where I can connect and interact with non-European countries and learn also from their experience. For me, this is absolutely Pavlov, the lowest level basic food I need to be able to do my job. With regards to Belgian initiatives, cross-border, for those who remember the E-Leaders meeting last year in Brussels, we briefly mentioned the Belgian initiative on that we also called E-Leaders Without Borders, which was just an initiative together with our ICT industry to go to other EU countries and to share our experiences. Our organization also works in a more direct bilateral way, mostly outside of the EU. We have a specific agency that is taking care of development cooperation, and Belgium has taken the decision to focus on the African continent, to concentrate its support. We have selected 15 African countries where we go really in depth in the support that we do with them. And since a number of years, we have also added the chapter of digital transformation in that agreement. So our organization goes to these countries to assist them in either defining their digital strategy or their digital transformation strategy. I call this more some kind of a little level of coaching, but we every time see that while maybe we go there to explain a few things, we always come back with very interesting good hints and tips of things we can also take back home. One final little word I would like to say is with regards to the academic sector. We more and more believe that cooperation is very fruitful in that direction too. We regularly, or we try as much as possible to go and give lectures or teach at universities, and to have students do, for instance, their thesis in our department. we see that we learn a lot from them. Most of the time is, of course, young generations who have fresh ideas. Universities support these studies with their expertise. So that two-way channel that we've started recently for us is also very refreshing and a new way of collaboration that we absolutely want to support. So I'll leave it to that and hand over back to Siim.
Thank you, Frank. And I think indeed you're right to point out there are so many levels, layers that are also overlapping in terms of things that are still happening and will continue happening. And like I said, all the way to academic side. Thank you. I will give the floor to the last sort of opening panelists, but I just wanted to mention one thing, post it into the chat here as well. If you do have questions, because we will have a small Q&A part coming up with panelists, either raise your hand in the Zoom participant list, or exactly throw in a question to the Teams chat, so we will know to pick it up like that. But last but not least, we have Carlos and Tisa joining us from quite afar. So from GAF, the development bank for Latin America. So Carlos, perhaps you want to sort of exactly add some moments to the discussion too.
Sure, and thank you, Siim. I hope you can all hear me well. So that's good. That's good to be there, and I think we quite a few of us in this time zone, which shows a lot of commitment to this to this group as well. Because the beers are not for us at this time, but coffee is probably the only way out. No, but thank you also, Siim, also, and Barbara and the team also at the OECD for the invitations to attend this meeting, to extend it to the Development Bank of Latin America. I'll just make three points. I mean, I think the first one is really to take up on what the Deputy Secretary General said at the beginning as well, in terms of, we're going from a world where going digital was important, but now it's essential and we need to become being digital. But a lot of policy choices that will be made in these coming years, or in these coming months, or these coming years, will be critical to set the tone, set the direction to travel in this agenda. And one of the challenges we face is that a lot of issues that we need to tackle are global in nature. And they need multilateral responses. I mean, we look at that in the data governance, data taxation, digital taxation, or data protection issues, or data sharing across borders and digital economy. There's a lot of issues that are really international and require multilateral responses. The challenge, though, is the multilateral system is in crisis, and there's not necessarily a perfect multilateral forum today to discuss and agree on some of these standards and some of how these things will be monitored over time. And I think that's why, like, this working party is even more important than it was before, in terms of trying to set up a number of, good practices, soft law and global standards, at least to get that going. But we have a challenge in terms of, where is the best multilateral response, and where is the best multilateral forum on which to agree on what the standards will be in the governing the digital world tomorrow. The second point, and I think the agenda of this meeting is quite right, spot on many of these issues, is artificial intelligence is a game changer, or seems to become a game changer in the field of digital government. And I think the politics of data in particular have become very contentious in many countries, not only because of the tracing application, but I think more broadly in terms of how data is being handled. And there's a lot of issues to untangle here, but I think getting the governance of data right is probably one of the critical challenges as we move forward. And we know that there's three models that are competing in terms of which are going to be those global standards that are going to emerge. And I think there maybe more than in other areas, they probably will, need to have a kind of world data organization, or some multilateral forum that is entrusted to set standards and monitor compliance with some of these standards. But I think there we have really a game-changing sort of disruption coming very fast. I think the third point I will make is that, obviously, and this working party and the agenda is very rich on many of the issues and the challenge we face. But I think we need to think about a resetting the state. And I think in this resetting the state in the digital age, and we know that the digital is going to be really part of the recovery as we move forward. I think we need to really put citizens at the center of the state, and in many countries, especially in emerging economies, I mean, it's a very important cultural shift in terms of how citizens relate to the state. But putting citizens first, citizens at the center, really needs to be really a driving force in terms of this digital agenda. But also we need to put the state in the startup mode. I think we cannot run societies of the 21st centuries with states that are on the 20th century in terms of how they are organized. And I think in France, President Macron is quite adamant that, you know, the state needs to be put in the startup mode as well. So I think we need to think about new ways of thinking the state, of doing the state and doing public services. I think I welcome in particular one of the new work streams that the Working Party is embarking on is really around the financing of it all and the financial management of digital transformation. Many governments around the world are going to increase their IT budgets, the government technology budgets quite significantly. And we know there's been a lot of failures in big government IT programs and projects, and the ways they are budgeted, the way they are managed, and the way they are sustained over time. So these issues of the economics of digital government role, the financing and the public finance management of digital strategies will be quite useful in terms of how you're going to make sure that the money is well spent. So just with these three thoughts, I wanted to leave the group. And again, thank for having us here. We're delighted from CAF to have this excellent collaboration with the OECD on a number of things. As you know, we just released the joint report with the OECD on digital transformation in Latin America, on rebuilding back better. We're working on another report for next year on digital government in Latin America with many of the partner countries that are also online here, and obviously with the network on open and innovative government. So there's a number of work strands that we've been able to, and a number of bridges that we've been able to make with the OECD on some of these agendas, and we very much look forward to continue working together on this. Thank you, Sil.
Thank you, Carlos. And the coffee works just fine. So thank you really for the
just need to put something in it other than coffee.
Well, that's for later. That's for later. No, but I just wanted to say that I think you did an excellent job in actually squaring up and rolling up the topics for our meeting, and you know, giving you once more the rationale why we have chosen several of them, be it data or be it a financing issue and so forth. So thank you for that. Dear colleagues, you've heard a few perspectives. As I said, there is some space to raise a few comments, questions, remarks on your own. Do it please in a Zoom here in the participant chat, in the participant list, if it just does a function like raise hand, or throw it in the Teams. I know that Steve from Luxembourg already raised a question in the Teams. Steve, we'll leave that for just the next session, because that's exactly the point for the next session to go into, in a sense that, you know, what were some of the things all of us noticed in COVID and had to fix in COVID response. But perhaps I'll start with just one question of our own, and I'll bounce it to Chris and Jungju and Frank as well. From what Carlos said, I mean, if we talk about the things at hand on multilateral level and collaboration-wise, is there like a screaming immediate priority topic? I mean, Carlos was pitching, for example, data and, you know, World Data Organization need like that. Do you agree? Is there something else that is, you know, the most important that we still haven't tackled? So perhaps Chris, I'll throw in a tough spot here, but any views?
Hi, Sim. Yeah, I do think there's a couple of things that spring to mind. I think the data one is a good example, because I think there's not just technical elements to that, there's also ethical elements to that. So you might want to wrap in AI and all the things that data informs in an advanced digital government could be part of that conversation. But I think it's also important to look at how we engage, and I know we do this in working groups in the OECD, but how we partner with industry. And there are some certain parts of industry, like the hyperscale cloud providers, who are, you know, in most of our countries and involved in most of our work. And I would suggest that it would be important for us to look at making sure that we're not creating a new version of legacy inside our governments in the way that certainly in the UK, we've had to overcome a lot of legacy behaviors, a lot of legacy commercials, a lot of legacy technology. You know, I'd be very interested to look at how governments are partnering with industry in order to deliver our services and to iterate what we're doing in a way that makes sure we're retaining control of our destinies and not simply creating a new set of monopolistic providers of technology services. I think that's, you know, I don't think we are there, but we could end up there. I could see how we might, to just something to maintain that balance between us being in control of that and handing it all over to industry.
All right, thank you. Sungja, any views?
Sorry for the delay. I think one of our greatest challenges was the privacy, which we were coping with COVID-19, and we experienced a lot of problems. So I'm expecting that we can share all the difficulties and the challenges, and we can. Oh, sorry about my volumes. I think my mic is not working. Are you hearing me okay now? Okay. So anyway, in conclusion, we have a lot of themes to discuss together, not only today, but maybe later that. So I'm expecting for the further meeting. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Frank?
Yeah, I would like to support what Chris said. I think the way we handle our data, security-wise and ethical-wise, is the key topic of discussion for the moment, at least in Europe. I think citizens have reached a level, a critical level, where they no more agree of what industry is doing with their data, and the fact that they cannot control it. So I think this is a debate that will be very, very high on the agenda in the coming months. The second thing I would like to see is how public authorities could better handle new technologies that are being put on the market. I think we take still too much time to not only first to understand the technology, but to legiferate in case there is a need for legiferation, to place it on the right spot legally, and to make sure that this thing is this new technology is used in a positive way, in a constructive way, without harming well, the ethics and the security of the data. So I think there we can still do a little bit of work.
Sorry for the small glitch on my end. Carlos, anything else you want to add, having heard the colleagues?
No, just to emphasize what Chris has pointed out in terms of the relationship between governments and the industries. I think the balance of power is really also one of the issue in terms of who's dominating whom in that sense. And I think it's broader than the issue of government sort of relationship with the industry as insourcing or outsourcing tech solutions for government problems, but it's about setting standards. And I think the issue is, I think, you know, maybe of different levels, if you will, in terms of the relationship in terms of service providers and public services, and how I think governments in many countries have outsourced their IT brains to the industry, and that's what Frank also was alluding to. I think a lot of governments like Singapore are now insourcing their IT brains to better understand what technology they need, but also how to shape it and influence it. And I think there's another level is about, you know, really the global standards and norms. And from the view of Latin America, for example, where we are a little bit outside some of these big debates, but the debate, for example, around digital taxation or the debate around data governance really is really, there's, you know, multi-level game in terms of different countries and different models, but also between the industries or the GAFAs on one hand, and also governments. And I think that would be a challenge as we move forward. It's how to get the global governance of the digital transformation right, and that's one of the issues that I think we're all grappling with. What we see is that there's different forms, trying to tackle the issue from different angles, from the World Trade Organizations to others. But I think if we move forward, and 2020 is going to be the digital decade as part of the recovery, I think the global digital governance is not on par with the challenge.
Hear that. Any participants have anything to chime in? Again, do raise your hand in the Zoom chat or Zoom participant list or otherwise. Perhaps I'll, in the meantime, throw something from Frank's intervention in to say that, again, Frank was very, very clear in terms of highlighting how many things are happening and as I still say, sometimes overlapping. And then, the stemming for our session here, as well as Carlos's point, was in some ways, multilateralism approach is lacking, if not in crisis. So if I ask this way, I mean, can we pinpoint what is the biggest thing missing? Is that what could be some of these sort of ways also that us as e-leaders can help in that sense? Obviously, we have our format here, but anything beyond that? Anyone from the panelists want to jump in?
Hi, Sim. Sorry, could you repeat the question again? Sorry, my audio cut out briefly.
Sorry. Okay, so I was asking in a sense that, as Frank kindly highlighted, I mean, there are many things happening, many collaboration formats, modes, and so forth on various levels. At the same time, I guess the background to our session here was, just like Carlos pointed, I mean, there seems to be a bit of streak and problem with multilateralism, if not a crisis moment. So is there certain quick fix we can do, something we can add from e-leaders beyond what we're already doing here? So what could be, so exactly format-wise, or otherwise like a thing to tackle next to bring multilateralism back to the game, up to the game?
Well, I mean, wouldn't we traditionally we'd do a retrospective that would allow us to, because I'm always nervous in public and government forums that we focus on and celebrate our successes and here's what we've done well, instead of taking a really candid look at our failings or areas that we know haven't been up to standard, and to pool that in order to find the common areas of kind of challenge. And like, I'm very happy to lead from the UK side, and I've already asked the team to focus not just on here's what we did well, but actually here are the areas that we are still struggling with, that are still exposed as digitally immature, and what parts of the business have really been exposed as lagging quite far behind. So I would be very up for an OECD-led and coordinated retrospective that allows us to not focus on how digital maturity has assisted, but where we are still digitally immature, even as some of the leading countries in the world.
And yeah, now some sort of international part can help out practically on that. Like a touch, always with a design approach. Good job. Anyone else from the panelists wanna contribute?
Sim, maybe if I may, but I don't want to take a lot of the time. But I think two quick things. I mean, maybe looking forward also is not to put more issues on the table of the working party, but I think there's the issue of digital, the issue of the relationship with the digital transformation with democracy, and the challenges. But also some of the opportunities that the digital transformation will bring to the way liberal democracies in particular are working. But there's an issue here, and there's a very contentious issue here around politics, democracy, and digital as well. And we see that in the issue around data, who owns your data, and so on and so forth. But there's it's more the political dimensions of this agenda. Since the meeting last year, for example, we've come across several cases in several governments where the issue of data has become so contentious that it has, exploded into a political crisis in some of these countries. So managing also the politics and managing the messaging around digital, so that people understand it better might be one of the things to look at. And the other thing is more like a suggestion. Is also how maybe the Working Party can also work to engage and include the industry in these debates. It seems to me that these spaces for dialogue between governments and the industries are very much required and would be needed. And obviously, there's a lot of tech for good industries that are out there as well. But in terms of really engaging the industry, that might be also quite a useful way to try to bring some of these discussions together in terms of these two groups. Thank you.
Indeed. But we had a hand up from the Secretary General. Jeffrey, you wanted to intervene, and I think that's a proper sort of last addition to this chat discussion. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I really appreciated this discussion. I think the issues raised about trust and delivering for citizens is really, really critical here. I mean, I'm from the US, where there's a general distrust or a greater distrust of government than there may be in lots of parts of Europe, at least historically. I think this is one of the big challenges here, is how you do this transformation, allow government to use data that it has in a way that enhances the level of trust that citizens have in what government is doing. And I think that is the, very critical point these days, is that the biggest risk we have right now in how we handle this is that there's declining trust from citizens. And I think it's a unique opportunity to show citizens that government can deliver for them. And that's the most important issue in my view here. And so I really appreciate that that was raised in the context of the last discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. But with that, I will conclude this session, also because of time. I think our discussion has been a very good segue into one of the later sessions coming right up on data. So good job, everyone. And thank you for all the sort of panelists for the interventions. I just want to say two things, a bit sort of technical for all the participants. That first of all the sort of ideas and sort of possible next steps that come from this discussion, they will be captured into like the meeting minutes and so forth. So any key points, takeaways, follow-up agreements or expectations, don't worry, they will be part of it and with you after the event as well. But now, to take us to session one, a bit of retro, exactly using the word that Chris brought on in a different context, but still, in terms of your COVID experiences, I will have Benjamin from the Secretariat jump in, and he will